Dishonored 2 was announced last year at E3, and I'm not gonna lie, I kinda got a bit scared when they didn't talk about it for a few months. But they finally opened up and started talking about it again, and I would like to talk today about what they've come out with most recently. So they still haven't said a ton so far, although they have started talking at the very least. But I sort of wanted to talk about what has been going on, because it's a bit all over the place. I've been very avid into finding out all the news of Dishonored 2 as a huge Dishonored 1 fan, as someone with over 1,000 hours in that game. I obviously want to know a lot about the Dishonored 2 news, and I have had to sort of article surf a bit to find stuff from various places. They're not necessarily being hugely open with the games, as Bethesda usually are, although it's not Bethesda that develops this game. Bethesda is usually pretty open with showing stuff off, but Arcane are being a bit more creative about it, throwing out bits of information left and right, so I wanted to bundle together what we have so far. So first of all, I'm going to talk about what we know about the game's setting, story, and the characters themselves. So the game is set 15 years in the future from the previous game. Emily has been the Empress and has been dethroned and is now an assassin in the game. It'll be set in Psychonos, which is like a different island separate from Dunwall. So it's sort of its own, it's sort of like its own country, I guess, its own city type thing. But yeah, 15 years down the line, Emily is now an assassin, much like Corvo was back in the day. So as far as the two characters actually go, co-creator of Dishonored Harvey Smith basically said that you would be playing a bit of the game and then you come to a point where you have to choose between Emily or Corvo, and then at that point it's set. You're locked in with that character and you'll be playing as that character for, well, up until the end of the game, which I know a lot of people are liking the idea of switching between them, but I don't know, I like this because it means that you'll be able to play the game twice as the two different characters, and the first game already had a lot of replay value in sort of playing it with killing everyone or playing it with, you know, doing it non-lethal ghost or something like that. So I think adding this whole extra element of still being able to do that and also having two characters to play as, I think is awesome. Also, I don't know, as far as story goes, it makes sense to stick with the one character. I think, loud car going past? I think if they sort of had it so that there was like, you know, switching between them in between missions, it could confuse the story a little bit, so I like this. But yeah, with regards to the characters themselves, he also went on to say that if you play as Emily, it is all new. She has her own set of powers, her own assassinations and animations. She feels different. She feels like a finesse character. So they are very much pushing the two different characters, two different playthroughs. Corvo and Emily will have very different sets of abilities and very different playstyles, so that's what they're pushing. It's not just like, oh, play as Corvo, or oh, you can play as Emily as well. It is, they have different abilities. Now it'll be interesting to see how they write the abilities into Emily. Obviously Corvo, you know, you saw the Outsider Dream and all that, and that's what happens. So 15 years in the future, Corvo will already have his powers, but it'll be interesting to see how Emily comes to have her powers as well. But yeah, he goes on to say that the Corvo and Emily do have different powers, but they're sort of semi-similar for some of them. So for example, he went into saying that a lot of people will be familiar with Blink for Corvo, while Emily has Far Reach, which is her sort of version of the teleportation ability. And you've seen that in the trailer. It's the one where you sort of throw the tentacle out and pull yourself across, and he talks about it's just a different way to flow yourself through the world. It's a different way to move around and all that sort of stuff. So as he said earlier, Emily is much more of a finesse character, but if you play as Corvo, he says it's all the classic stuff. It's the rat swarms, possession, stopping time. He feels more heavy and brutal. He's an older guy. So Corvo is your more sort of heavy, brutal, violent type because he's older and he's, you know, just brutal, I guess, as he describes. And then Emily's sort of your more mobile, you know, finesse type character. We've also been told by Arcane that the game's upgrade system is going to be changing. So in the previous game, you just basically leveled up your powers, you gathered your runes and then used them to either buy new powers or to upgrade them to like level 2 of the power, and then you just be told what the upgrade is. But in Dishonored 2, it basically says the players will be allowed to upgrade them in different branching ways, essentially. So the article I read here uses the example of Emily's Far Reach. Could be upgraded so that it could grab objects, or it could throw enemies into the air, that sort of stuff. So by default, it'll more be sort of something you can use to move yourself around and upgrade your mobility by it. But as you upgrade your ability, you can start to use it to, you know, throw things at enemies and all that sort of stuff. So it's less a case of, oh, here's the ability and now you can go to level 2, and more a case of, you've got your ability, what do you want to do with it next? Do you want to be able to do this, or do you want to be able to do this? Which once again encourages more replay value, so I think that's awesome. But coming back to the setting here briefly, as I said before, it is set in Psychonos. More specifically, it's actually set in Karnaca, which is essentially the capital city of Psychonos. And this is a very coastal city, so it is similar to Dunwall in that respect, that it is coastal, but it is much more, I guess, Mediterranean looking, as you can tell from the trailer. If you watch that back, it's a lot lighter, a lot less sort of dark and grim and stuff. It is a lot lighter, although it is actually also facing its own epidemic. So in the previous game we were faced with the Weepers and the rats, which were, you know, infesting the town and all that. Well, in this one, as you can see in some particular shots in the trailer, we're facing these sort of things which are more insect-like, and they seem to hatch out of dead corpses. And a lot of this is more hinted at in the trailer, as you can see on the screen now. So I'm wondering if maybe, similar to the first game, if the more people you kill, the more of these insect things will be around. If you remember in the last game, there were a lot more Weepers if you were more violent about it. Particularly as you got to the end of the game. So I'm wondering if this will have a similar sort of system. This isn't something they've really touched on yet, but I am wondering if you go sort of high chaos, will you get more of these insects, more of these infected people, all that sort of stuff. And whereas if you go low chaos, you may, you know, keep it nice and I guess clean, I don't know. Also, there's been hints about this big mansion that was shown in the trailer. Apparently that will be a place which you'll be able to go in the game, and it's been hinted at that it will be called Clockwork Mansion. Now moving on here actually to the voice actors. Voice actors for Dishonored were very memorable in my opinion, because they had some pretty star-studded names like Susan Sarandon, Lena Headey and Chloe Moretz. So those were some pretty, you know, big names in the game. But then there were a lot of voice acting moments which were just absolutely atrocious.
I wanted to be sure. What's that? Ah! No! No! Ah!
But they do seem to be remedying that. They do seem to be working a lot harder on that, in that they do have a lot of bigger names, a lot of, you know, professional people who know what they're doing. I wouldn't say professional voice actors, because you've got some actual actors here, but people who know what they're doing. They've been in the acting game before, so it's good to see that not only they are keeping sort of higher known, more known names in the game, but they are also as well sort of trying to avoid the shittiness from the previous game. So just to list a few names here, we've actually got Wilson Fisk, we've also got Rosario Dawson. They were both from the Netflix series Daredevil, so they're pretty well known names. So we've actually also got a Game of Thrones actor here. I've never seen Game of Thrones personally, so I couldn't really say this, but he's Pedro Pascali, who played the character Oberyn Martell. He's going to be playing the Howler Gang leader in the game. And we've also got some other names as well, like Sam Rockwell, who was in Moon. We've got Robin Lord Taylor, who was in Gotham, and Jamie Hector, who was in The Wire. So just right off the bat, you know, a lot of the times, as far as game actor goes, I know you'll get some voice actors who people will be familiar with, but a lot of the time, even if a game does have a big voice actor, they tend to only have a few. But this, so far, from what we've been told, there seems to be quite a lot of voice actors in this that are pretty big names. Now, this is awesome, because obviously it's just a good thing, but I sort of also am a bit skeptical towards it, in that was actually quite a problem for the first game. I feel like Arcane spent a lot of their voice acting budget on Susan Sarandon and Chloe Moretz, which resulted in, as I said earlier, some questionable voice acting from other people. So I'm sort of worried that if they're going ham with getting as many big names in there as possible, that when it comes to some of the less important characters, the voice acting won't necessarily be up to scratch. I personally, a lot of these names don't really mean anything to me. I've seen Daredevil, but I've never seen Game of Thrones. I've never seen Moon or The Wire. So this is something which I personally would rather have a lot of good voice actors that can just do the job than going with some super big names and then having to, you know, scrimp a bit later on the voice acting budget. But, you know, we'll see how it goes. Obviously we don't really know much beyond this, but so far things are looking good. Another potential problem that I noticed, which won't be a problem for me per se, but the thing is, these are all big names, as I've said a few times now, so people may already know these and associate these for their acts. Because the thing is, when you get an actor in a film, they'll only be that character for the one film, or maybe for 2 or 3 if it's a series. But then they move on to the next film and it's another character. But if you have a character in a series such as Daredevil or Game of Thrones, where the actor is that character for a long time, you sort of get used to that and you'll start to associate that actor with that character. So I feel like, say for example, Pedro Pascali, I don't know how long he was in the Game of Thrones series, but people may sort of go, they'll be playing the game and they'll hear the Howler Gang leader, and instead of being like, oh, it's the Howler Gang leader, they may start to associate that and be like, oh, it's the dude from Game of Thrones. And I don't know, maybe that'll be a problem. It might not be a huge thing, but I'm just thinking, for me personally, if I was hearing a character who's been in the series for a long time in the game, it sort of may break immersion a bit, which is why, again, I sort of like going with not necessarily unknown people, but, you know, lesser known people that I haven't necessarily heard before, because I can associate their voice with that character. You know, going back to the first game, I don't remember his name, but say for example the leader of the Bottle Street Gang, I know his voice now, and I know well, I know his lines and stuff because I've played the shit out of the game and I speedrun it, but yeah, I know his voice, so I can associate his voice with his character. But if I was playing the game and he was voiced by, like, if he was voiced by, say, David Boreanaz, I would not necessarily go, oh, this is the leader of the Bottle Street Gang. I'd be like, oh, dude, it's Booth from Bones, you know what I mean? So I feel like that could break the immersion. For me, it's not necessarily going to be a problem because, as I said earlier, I'm not particularly familiar with the franchises these voice actors are from, or these actors are from, I should say. But I don't know. I think this could be a thing that a lot of people could. Well, not necessarily a lot of people, or some people got problems with. I don't know. I'm just talking off the top of my head, but it's just a point that I thought I'd make. And lastly, I also wanted to briefly touch on the fact that the game will be releasing in November 11th on PC, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One. So yeah, it was originally planned for a spring release, but obviously that is definitely not going to happen. I personally am 100% okay with this. As I mentioned, I'm a huge fan of Dishonored, and I really want to make sure they do this. Well, not make sure, but I really want them to do this right and get this right, because I'll be very, very disappointed if they don't. So, yeah, I personally, they can push it back, as long as it means that the game will be out on time. And I trust Arcane. They did a great job with the previous game. I have spoken to people from Arcane before, and I do trust that they'll be working well on it. And if they think that moving it back is a good decision, well, it shows that they basically went, okay, the game isn't done yet, we need more time, as opposed to just releasing a broken product. So yeah, I trust them. I trust that this is a good thing, and I'm okay to wait if it means the game will be not shitty. But anyway, that is going to do it for this video. I hope you guys did enjoy. If you did enjoy, be sure to leave a like, and if you want to see more and you haven't already done so, be sure to subscribe. Other than that, thank you very much for watching. My name is YetiHype, and I will see you guys next time.
So
Peace.
let's run, make a great escape, and I'll be waiting outside for the getaway. It doesn't matter who we are, we'll keep running through the dark. And all we'll ever need is another day. We can slow down, cause tomorrow is a mile away, and live like shooting stars, cause happy endings hardest to fake.